Hello, and welcome to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I am so glad you are here with me. My name is Carrie Dale, and I am your host. I am an entrepreneur, author, podcaster, manifester, and motivator. And I am on a mission to empower you to create the life of your dreams. If you are looking to uplevel your life, relationships, finances, productivity, and success, you have come to the right place. I will share with you tools, resources, strategies, my failures, and my successes that have all helped me achieve the life of my dreams. It is my goal with this podcast to help you see your potential and empower you to create the life of your dreams. So let's get to it. Well, welcome back to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I'm Carrie Dale, and today I have with me Amy Comeau. She is an award-winning and acclaimed marketing executive with a depth and breadth in healthcare, nonprofit higher education, and performing arts. And she's also this incredible author and recently wrote Every Storm Runs Out of the Rain. Welcome, Amy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Carrie.
Well, I'm really excited to just jump right into this. How do you go from marketing to writing books?
Well, it kind of happened by accident, honestly. I'll take you back. I had always wanted to write a book even since I was little, and this is not the book that I thought I was going to write. But it kind of happened. It's almost a silver lining that came out of the pandemic. So when I was the vice president of marketing for Emory Healthcare, I started writing a Friday email to my team that first week of the pandemic as a way to what I thought was just going to be to get us through 8 weeks of shelter in place in this new, world of remote work. Well, we now know that that is here to stay, and we can do podcasts like this now virtually, which is amazing. But I wrote every Friday to my team, and it was really kind of just like how to keep ourselves, motivated, or just really reflect on the week, just ways to communicate with them when we were all remote. So about 6 months in,
Not 6 weeks.
no, not 6 weeks. No, about 6 months in, my team share with me how much they looked forward to getting these emails. And about 6 months in, a couple of them unprompted said, you should really think about publishing these as a book. And I was like, huh, okay. When I didn't really think about it because we were, in the midst of dealing with the pandemic. And then when we hit the 2 year mark, I actually printed out, like literally printed out all the emails on sheets of paper and punched holes in them, put them in a 3-ring binder and gave them to each member of our executive team just as a thank you for their leadership, but then also, hey, do you know anything about publishing a book? And a couple of those were PhDs, actually gave me some insights. And then it wasn't until a year later that I actually found a local publisher here in Atlanta that said, yeah, absolutely, we'd love to publish your book. And so I signed with them, and we went through and we curated all the emails to figure out which ones we were going to keep and which ones were, not, we didn't want to keep. And then I spent most of the end of 23 and half of 2024 going back and writing reflections, not on every single email, but just kind of reflections like, here's what was going on with me that my team didn't know, or here's what was going on with my team. And then for people who aren't in healthcare, I also included what I call pro tips. So like, here's what an incident command center is, or here's why we call it an emergency department instead of an ER. So it's this really amazing compilation of honestly leadership lessons and resilience and leading with vulnerability and authenticity, in addition to chronicling the pandemic.
Yeah, but I think that's amazing because I think so many of us craved connection, right? Craved that during that time. It felt very alone and yeah, it just heavy. And so for you to have motivated them, for lack of better words, every
Yeah.
single week with your words and just keeping that connection, what a great thing. And then to share it with the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had some people. Obviously, an obvious market for me is other healthcare marketers and other healthcare teams. And I've had some people share with me that reading it was like the closure they needed to put the pandemic behind them in a good way, right? Because in healthcare, and actually, honestly, the world, we've gone from the pandemic to then the Great Resignation to industry disruption, and now our healthcare systems are dealing with, cuts to the CDC and Health and Human Services and freezes on funding. So the change never ends, and you need to actually close one trauma, I think, before you can actually deal with the next one. And so that's what people have said that have read it, and especially teams I've talked to just said, this was the pandemic group therapy we didn't even know that we needed.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds like it to me. I mean, I'm not in that industry at all, but I would still sit down and read and
Yeah.
enjoy every moment of that. Do you do you see yourself staying within the industry of marketing, or do you see yourself branching more towards authoring more and writing more?
Yeah. Well, so I think a little bit of both. So right now, I completed a 20-year career with Emory University and Emory Healthcare back in November, and
Mhm.
so I've been focusing on promoting my book. So I definitely want to stay in healthcare, but my background, I mean, not healthcare, in marketing, but my background is more than just, as you noted, more than just healthcare. I kind of accidentally got into healthcare. When I started my career in the performing arts, I worked for opera companies and music halls for 10 years before shifting into higher education. So I definitely want to stay in marketing. I want to pivot a little bit and look at opportunities that are based here in Atlanta or fully remote opportunities. But
Mhm.
I also have been thinking about what my other books are that I might write. The original book I thought I was going to write was going to be on actually comparing and contrasting my two careers in healthcare and in opera. And it's going to be, if I ever write it, it's going to be titled On Divas and Doctors.
That's awesome.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I think every one of us has many books
Yes,
inside, and it's just the time and opportunity, like you said, you didn't know when, you didn't know how, but the desire was there,
yeah,
which I love because I too, as a little girl, always said I wanted to write. That's all I ever wanted to do. So I feel you there. Did it, did it, did it fulfill that part of you? Like, did it bring you joy and excitement? And yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was just an amazing process. Like I remember when I was talking to my husband, like I think I'm gonna, I'm gonna invest with this publisher to publish the book, and like, yeah, let's do it. And that was like such an exciting moment to be like, oh my God, it's actually the dream is actually coming true. But
Mhm.
then the process of writing it was just, it was so. It was enjoyable. I loved it. It was therapeutic. It was just amazing to see it all come together.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite, I mean, there's a lot of favorite parts about the process, but the actual cover of my book, the title, Every Storm Runs Out of Rain, that's actually my own handwriting
Oh,
on the cover. Yeah. So we
that's
had,
really cool.
yeah, it was, the title came from, I mean, it's a Maya Angelou quote, but I had somewhere in the early pandemic, I had seen or heard her quote somewhere, couldn't tell you when, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and it sat on the end table next to my, the chair in my living room, and it sat there throughout the entirety of the pandemic. And some days I wouldn't look at it, I wouldn't even notice it was there. Other days I would look at it and be like, yep, we got this. And other days when it was just one of those like deep, dark, depressing days, like, is this ever going to end? I would stare at it like a trance. And so when we came to land on this as the title, Andrew, who was my editor, he was working on also the cover designs. And so he kept using different fonts to try and to express the title. And I'm like, that's not working. They all look too fonty to me. So I said,
Yeah.
what if we try and I do it in my own handwriting? Because I was just fixated on what that note looked like and that being kind of inspiring the cover. So
Mhm.
I just took out a Sharpie and I wrote it down several different times. And one of them is the one that ended up being on the cover of the book. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like such an amazing, and to your point, it's such an amazing artistic experience and self-fulfilling experience to see a dream like that come true, you
Mhm.
know, 40 years later after you started thinking about wanting to write as a little girl.
Yeah, it's amazing. But what I actually see, like with you talking about even just that portion of it, is this complete joy, right? And I think that you actually, I mean, I don't know this about you, but it feels like you probably put that same joy into your marketing, into whatever it is you're doing in life, because you came up with the idea to send people a weekly letter. I mean, so what other like what other marketing things have you done that has that feel to it? That
Yeah. So it's been fun. I've been experimenting with marketing the book, right? Because it goes back to like the earliest days of when I started out marketing, especially in the arts, where you didn't have big budgets, so you just had to get creative and just try different things out to see what stuck. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what I've been doing. So I recently started a Substack account to try and experiment there. Last weekend, I actually was my first time ever being a vendor at a festival. So
Oh.
I was one of 80 authors at the Conyers Book Festival, which is here in my local town here in Georgia, suburb of Atlanta.
Mhm.
And that was just a truly amazing experience. It was hosted by a local bookstore called The Bookseller, and this was their third annual one. And there were authors of all different authors, nonfiction, fiction, children's books. And it was just amazing to be there. It was a long day. I'm not gonna lie, it was a long day, but like I just meeting different people. And I didn't sell a ton of books, but I sold books to strangers
Mhm.
just by them walking by and asking about it. And I would share with them what it was about. And they're like, oh, I definitely want to buy this. And so that was a really fulfilling experience. It was a lot of fun just to connect with people you don't know that just on the spot decided, yeah, sure, it sounds like an interesting story and I'd like to read it.
Yeah. Do you are you fearful in those things? Like, does it scare you to go out and put yourself out in that way, or is this just easy?
No, it's not easy for me. So I'm an introvert. People don't believe it when they see me and they talk to me, especially my team, like, there's no way that you're an introvert. But when I'm comfortable around people, when I'm with people I know, I'm very, I come to life, so to speak. And so it's fun. But if you put me in a room full of strangers by myself, it's like the most petrifying thing. So it was fun to do it, but I had to like kind of overcome my fear of like that introversion that's in me,
Hmm.
but use it as an opportunity I also use it as an opportunity. I'm like, okay, let me hone my pitch, right? And so I was listening and learning to the other exhibitors and like how they were drawing people into their booths or how they were engaging with people. And so it was actually I called it a market research experiment for me. Like, I'm going to invest in this festival, see how it goes, see if it's worth doing. These are worth doing in the future. And so it was good practice for me, I guess, to try to be in that space.
I love that you gave it a label like market research or something to get yourself through that. Because I was thinking to myself as you were talking, I'm like, okay, so how would she tell others to like overcome that? How, but you gave it a label. It was
Yeah.
perfect.
That's why I tell people, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to if this is going to be successful or not, but yeah, I'm calling it market research. And then the other thing I would share with other people is, and I actually learned this from another colleague of mine, so who's also a chief marketing officer, but she's got an arts background.
Okay.
And she said she uses her arts training with her team, especially when they're trying to figure out like how to deal with internal stakeholders or other people or people that might be intimidating. And she's like, just pretend that you're stepping into a role. So
Mm,
it's not you. Envision that this is your role in a play, and this is this is your script. So I've started actually thinking about that myself. I'm like, oh, okay. So in moments where I'm anxious about doing something, but knowing that I need to do this to grow and step out of my comfort zone,
mhm.
let me kind of, build my own little talk track around, okay, well, what's my acting role today? I mean, you still stay authentic to you, but it gives you a way of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but it
And
actually it allows you to create the persona that you are wanting to be and
yeah,
wanting to put out there. And even though that insecurity is behind going like, who am I and who
right.
wants to read my book and what is going on, you can set that aside because you can look at that image of you
Yeah.
and be that person.
Yeah,
That
totally. Totally. It's funny because gosh, I mean, I've been in Atlanta for almost 30 years. And I remember when I was young and I had just moved here, I didn't know anybody. And so think I took a random class at like a library or something around how to network.
Mm.
And because it was very intimidating to me, especially in my early 20s. And And I remember the person who led it said, remember the person you're sitting next to, particularly if you're at like a luncheon or something, they're just as they're probably just as nervous as you are.
Hmm. For
And
sure.
so, like, so now I'm like, okay, just figure out what are the questions that you're going to have. And I've learned now this phrase, oh, tell me more about, and that gets the other person talking about themselves instead of saying, I mean, you could say, do you have any trips planned this summer? But like once you know kind of what they do, oh, tell me more about your company. And then that opens up a conversation that you can continue asking questions to learn more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why I do this podcast. Actually, my whole point of doing this is to help people thrive in this world and manifest their dreams. And so I love that you're had this dream as a young girl, and here you brought it to what it is today. And it's exciting and it's inspiring. But I think I'm really curious. What would you tell that person that past you that was scared, that wasn't sure, that had these big visions, but didn't know where to go or where to start? Do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, so I had on my New Year's resolutions for many years to start writing more. So I, especially as I got into leadership roles, you get away from the craft that got
Hmm.
you into marketing or whatever that is that you're doing. And so I would go back, I mean, I would tell my past self, just start writing. Like don't worry about having it be planned into a perfect outline or a perfect, book. Just start writing. And so that's what I did start doing much later than but I would dabble like, oh, I'd get an idea in my head and I'd pop up on my computer and I would type it down. And it's funny, if you look at it, it's like you can see the first few paragraphs are great as I'm like in the zone. And then as I'm trying to make it more, the last few paragraphs are not so good. So it's like just don't worry about whether it's being good or not. Just get your thoughts down on paper.
Hmm.
Um, and I have found for me that stream of consciousness writing is actually when I do my best work. And so I would have told myself much earlier on, just start doing it and don't be afraid to experiment, like with social media. I mean, you need to make sure you're not doing anything stupid, right? It's going to jeopardize your brand or your company or anything like that, but experiment. Don't be afraid to try things. And if it doesn't get engagement on social, then you learn from that. And when it does, you learn from that too.
Yeah, for sure. I, yeah. And you know what I love about that too is writing a book, it takes work, right? And it can, I've heard, I mean, my experiences have been beautiful like yours, joyful, and the whole thing was just great. But I've heard horror stories about people going, well, I wrote all this and then the editor wanted this changed and this changed and this changed. And you hear about that, but what you were just saying now is probably because they were disconnected themselves. They were writing what they thought was supposed to be said or what they thought somebody else would want rather than just, connecting with themselves.
Right, right. Yeah. When you are comfortable with your authentic self,
Mhm.
and you can share that with the world. But if you're trying to be something that you're not,
Mhm.
people can feel it, right? And that's probably, you're right. Maybe the editors are like, no, this isn't, you're trying too hard. It's like, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so I'm a big Star Wars fan. And so there's that moment, right, when they say to Luke, use the force, right? Use the force. It's like he was trying too hard with all this stuff, and then he just had to relax. And then that's when he was successful. So I think you have, but it takes a minute to be comfortable with your authentic self. I mean, it may take, years to get to that point because we are a factor of all of our experiences, and not all of our experiences are joyful, right? And people are judgy. And so you kind of get to a point where you're like, you know what? And maybe it just comes with age. You're like, that's fine. I don't care what they think I am. And as my mom would say, you like it or lump it. So, yeah, but it can be a scary place do to not really know who you are, trying to be somebody that you're not. And until you, I think, find that authentic you, you're not gonna be satisfied. It's gonna be uncomfortable.
For sure. I had well, actually the lead author of the last book I did, she looked at me and she goes, Carrie, I just need you to stand naked in front of the world. I'm like, oh,
That's a
like
lot.
it is. But what her point was is stop trying to make it pretty, make it, say it how it is. Like share that, like that authenticity, like you were saying. And that is, I don't care how old we are, that's a hard thing to do, right? It's scary. But speaking of authenticity, what, like, right now, if I were to say you have to write a book on whatever it is that's happening in your world right now, what would it be? What would it be?
For me,
Yeah.
so I have another title in mind. Apparently, I come to the titles pretty easily, but actually doing different. But I started writing about this, and I broke my leg in December, just
Mm.
accidentally. It was one of those you're walking down the stairs, not holding onto the handrail, and next thing I knew, I was airborne and I cracked my left fibula in
Oh,
this in December. So it I was already had already left Emory, and I was taking November and December off, and I was like, okay, January, I'm going to start getting going. No, the world said, Amy, you're breaking your leg, and you're going to take another month or two off just to continue to heal and recuperate. And so in my mind, I was like, oh, I need to write a book called Hold On to the Handrail, stories of career transitions, menopause, and, the unexpected things that happen in life. So I'll like kind of talk about like what it's like to go from being basically a chief marketing officer and now being in this liminal stage where I'm like, I don't know what's going to come next. I know it's going to be great, but it's enjoying the moment and the highs and the lows, and just sharing those stories for other people, other executives who find themselves in the same spot, or other women at this stage in their careers trying to just deal with it all, and manage it all.
yeah, I would read that. I think you should totally roll with it. Again, you go to the theme of inspiring people, right? You take the hard and make it lovely. Just like you just said, it's the titles come easy to you, but I think that's a marketing thing. I think,
Probably.
yeah. I think when your mind works that way, you go to, oh, that'd be catchy. Somebody'd like that.
Yeah, 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 totally. So I actually did start writing. It was funny because I wrote, I have all, I took my own advice, and I started every couple days as I was going through the experience of just I've never well I had broken something before, but it wasn't this it was like my wrist, and I was able to continue on. But when you can't walk, or your walking is impeded, it's a
Mhm.
whole different world. So I would write like almost kind of diary of like, here's what day one is, and here's what day three is, and here's what day seven is. And then somewhere along the way I stopped. Maybe it was in all the craziness with Christmas, but I need to go back to those now and look. And then I have to take my own advice again and get back to just kind of writing the stories as I think about them.
Wow. Yeah, I think you do for sure. That I will tell you that sounds great. So please do,
All right,
and make sure you would come back to this and share it again.
I will.
Good. Um, one last question, I think. And we've talked about many things and a span of things in your life, but going back to the idea that I want to help people thrive in this world, is there anything that you would tell them? This is the one thing I would do no matter what that will help you thrive.
Hmm. It's wow. That's a
I,
really good question. It's a tough one. It's almost like we talked a little bit about how to kind of step out of your comfort zone, but I think and finding that comfort, but also finding that comfort in who you are. I think for me, I would say it is doing some of that work on you, that quiet work on you, to understand kind of what are the things that bring you joy.
Mhm.
What are the things that give you a stomach ache when you think about them? And eliminate the stomach, avoid the things that give you a stomach ache, and gravitate towards the things that bring you joy. And so I think if you can be, I guess, self-aware enough to know what those things are, then I think that will help you thrive. But if you keep even if you're like highly qualified for the things that give you a stomach ache, if you keep following those, you're never going to thrive, even though they may feel like they're going to help you thrive because you're getting paid to do them, you're getting a big title or whatever. And I use the term stomach ache because a colleague of mine said that to me too, as she was transitioning out from one industry to another. And she said, yeah, she's like, I don't know, that those offers would just give me a tummy ache. So I just said no to them. And I
Yeah,
just think that's like it's so simple, but
it
it's a
is.
hard thing to do, right? Because you're chasing success, you're chasing the money. I mean, that's just what we're taught to do, especially in the American
Yeah,
economy, right? And
for sure.
so knowing what brings you joy and knowing what doesn't is the first place to start.
Yeah, I find that so interesting that that's where you went. And only because I'm not joking, like an hour ago, I just finished another conversation and the gal I was talking to had similar idea, but she was using the click on the things that you're like get excited about. And if
Yeah.
you look at something and it makes you go like this, don't click on it.
Yeah.
And you're basically saying the same thing with your stomach ache. Does it make you feel good or are you feeling like, ugh, gross? I don't want
Yeah.
that.
And then the other thing I would say is find the people who love you for you, right? And you can you can recharge yourself there, right? I mean, don't surround yourself with people who are judgy. I mean, there's plenty of judgy people in the world. We don't, and you're going to encounter them and you have to deal with them. But when you are having those moments of self-doubt, go hang out with the colleagues that, or mentors that you have in your life or your friends, or just go and hang out with you. One of my favorite things to do is like to go out for a meal by myself, or even going to a sporting event by myself. I've got a family, but as I was I was on my own for about 10 years. I didn't get married until my early 30s. So I got used to doing these things by myself.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's just you go recharge, especially if you're an introvert like me, you just need to go and recharge you, not talk to anybody, and just enjoy, something that you love.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing everything. And I'm so excited to see what you do next. And I just want to encourage everybody to check out your book.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such a joy talking with you, and I really have enjoyed this past time together.
Thanks. Well, I hope that you were inspired by Amy, and I really do look forward to reading her book. I think you all should too. I mean, come on, we all lived through the pandemic. I'm sure that even though we're not maybe all in the same work field and are the same situations, we'll relate. And, who doesn't love a story you can relate to? Anyways, I hope you check it out. And above all else, remember that I believe in you and you can manifest the life of your dreams.